On this episode of the Turnbuckle, Jim Cornette defends CM Punk. I know. Well, I don't know. Nikki Cross returns on Raw. Tony Khan is accused of letting the Elite run AEW. And Logan Paul talks about his impatience and how it caused his quick rise to the top. Folks, it's time to hit a Hell's Gate into some wrestling news because it's time for the Buckle of Turning. Some of you were like, that's not what I don't remember. Is this the right video? Anyway, while speaking on the Jim Cornette experience, pro wrestling legend, defended CM Punk and said that Punk had more than enough reason to be angry. He had to know that Punk's arm was in some way damaged, and you think he's sitting there at friggin' midnight or whatever it was in Chicago going, all right, I have to put up with these. Well, this is an expletive, and you know what, man? Considering my last video got a 4 out of 10, okay, I'm not about to sit here and try it, okay? These jerkheads, there we go. I have tried to talk to them, and I have tried to talk to Tony Khan about it. I've done this business for these people. I brought these eyeballs on this company for these people. I've put up with these children, and now I am friggin' probably hurt, and I'm tired. And I'm old, and I work with children. And you know what? I might not get the chance to say some of these things in public again that need to be said. So here we go. Give me some muffins. Listen. You're allowed to be upset, okay? And he's 100% right, okay? Punk is a draw, and he definitely got more eyes on the product, and you know, he brought more viewers to a lot of different episodes and everything like that, and the MJF feud was really good, and he's a very talented wrestler and everything like that, right? Okay, there's a time and a place. I think that if you felt that strongly, maybe you should have gone to Tony Khan himself, and you should have sat down and had some sort of board meeting or something, right? Something along those lines. I think that you should have called the Elite up and been like, hey, I would like to discuss your work ethic or whatever with you guys. You know, I want to sit down and I want to talk about it. I don't think going out in the middle of the media scrum, not in the middle, in the beginning of the media scrum, and sort of like baiting the entire room into getting you to talk about, not the entire room, but you know, you're asking very like loaded questions specifically so you can get yourself started. You ever like met somebody and they come up to you and they go, how was your day? And you go, my day was good. And they go, okay, yeah. So I went like, you know how like people only speak to you whenever they want to talk about something about them, but they don't want to immediately start the conversation about them. So they want to try and see if they can organically get that like slithered into the conversation. He did a little bit of that. And on one hand, it's like, come on, man, you didn't have to do that. But on the other hand, I can understand why you're upset. There's been arguments, and when I say arguments, I feel like it's literally just Punk and Cornette talking about this, but I feel like I would argue that there's more people out there. I just haven't heard from them yet, and if you're one of them and you're watching this, please leave a comment. But there's arguments that the Elite are essentially the ones running the whole show, and Tony Khan is like, you know, the president, and everybody's like, oh, it's a figurehead, and the government's actually running it. Like, that's apparently what's going on. I don't know enough. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I think this is happening. I don't know enough. So I can't sit here and be like, oh, Tony Khan's the one who's actually doing it. Well, okay. Tony Khan is the executive producer for like a lot of things, right? He's producing, Dark and Rampage and like, I mean, especially now, you know, but, well, okay. So what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to think about the storylines way back when the Elite were like, you know, still running around. How many storylines were they in? What storylines were they doing? Because I know that they were trying to do the Elite versus, the who's-he what's-it, you know, the Elite versus Undisputed Era, right? I think they were trying to do that. And that went south because Kyle's having a baby and Bobby Fish left, so that kind of fell apart. And then Adam Cole got a concussion, so that's not going anywhere. And then what else? What else is trying to happen? I believe FTR and the Young Bucks were also a thing, and they wanted FTR versus the Young Bucks, but that also wasn't happening as well. So, I mean, in terms of storyline insertion, were they really all over? I mean, thinking about it, they were very prominent. They were very prominent. They were not as frequent as, or maybe I'm not remembering correctly, because that's another thing we have to factor in. I have the memory of a goldfish. So, the point is, right, is that on one hand, Punk has, I don't know, what do you want me to, I don't know what to say, man, because I don't want to sound like I'm rooting for Punk, right? But you can understand his positioning in this whole thing. Unlike how he's like, oh, the Bucks are running everything and the Elite are running everything. And it's a bunch of children because of how they're acting and how they're putting up with certain things and how they're deciding on many different factors of the show and stuff like that. Right? And Punk is old and he's injured and that sort of stuff. So, like, you can understand where he's coming from. But again, at the end of the day, I think that there's a time and a place. And I really don't think that Punk should have gone. I don't think Punk should have gone on the media scrum and said what he said. I think that if he had done it behind closed doors, I feel as though that we wouldn't be talking about it the way we're talking about it now. But I do feel as though that it wouldn't. I don't think anybody would have gotten fired. I think it would have just started a couple arguments and then some drama would have ensued. But nobody would have like left. You know, it wouldn't have been as extreme as it is now. So I think at the end of the day, Punk really should have like gone out of his way to like set up a meeting of some kind, and maybe all this wouldn't have happened. Next, we're going to talk about Nikki Cross. Okay, so Monday Night Raw, man, that show was bad. It was a bad show. I watched it. It was bad. It was a bad show. The matches, the two best matches were the opener. The opener wasn't bad. And Elias versus Gable. That was a pretty decent match. I really liked that. Other than that, all the matches were relatively dull. There wasn't really much going on with them. And you know what didn't help? The crowd. Sometimes I blame myself for that because it's like, maybe it's the way I'm listening to it. Maybe it's because I don't have headphones on. Maybe it's because I'm watching it on my phone. I give the crowd the benefit of the doubt so many times. But I don't know if it was, if it's just me, sure. But I was watching it last night and man, the crowd were just, it was as if someone had slowly injected sleeping gas into the arena. The crowd barely moved. Barely. It was as if I was watching a silent film when Omos was taking on those local competitors. Don't even get me started on that. Jeez Louise. So, all in all, the show gets a 2 out of 5 for me. If I could just quickly insert my Raw rating in here, it got a 2 out of 5, man. That show was garbage. But Nikki Cross came back. Now, man. Okay, so, she came back. I don't care. I really don't. Okay. I need to preface this. I care that she came back because she's done with that weird ASH thing, right? Almost a soup. What? Anyway, she came back. I don't even care about how she came back. It's the fact that she came back and nobody reacted. Nobody cared that she came back. Nobody cared. She came back. There was no pop. There was no, whoa, is that for nothing. Nothing happened. Nobody booed. No one did anything. The crowd were just like, oh, it's Nikki. Okay, cool. That was it. So Nikki came back. She did a crossbody for the first, minute and a half. Everybody's like, who is that? I don't know who that is. And then on commentary, they were like, oh my God, it's Nikki Cross. Like, it was just so, the commentary didn't do a very good job of, being like, oh my God, it's Nikki Cross. Holy mackerel and a sacral. I can't believe it. I don't know, man. But Nikki's back. Cool. That's all I can say is great. That's it. I don't have anything else. She came back. She did a crossbody on Sky and who else, whatever, and on the referee. I love that the referee got crossbodied. I don't know why. Then she attacked Bianca. And then Bayley got the win because another ref had to run out. And then she attacked Bayley. And then she just stood there at the camera. And, that's pretty much it. She looks... Okay, here's my issue. She looks like a regular lady. She came out in regular lady clothes and she didn't do anything absolutely insane. She didn't laugh maniacally. She didn't sit in the middle of the ring and rock back and forth like Mankind. She didn't do anything. Her hair wasn't super straightened and wet, She wasn't wearing her old gear. She just came out in regular clothes and she just looked like some random lady that just somehow managed to jump the barricade. That was it. She didn't look like Nikki Cross. She just looked like, it looked like she's doing her gimmick over completely. I'm gonna take off the wrestling costume and I'm gonna be a regular lady and then I'm gonna be crazy Nikki Cross, man. Listen, I'm not knocking the return because this is, and she attacked the two people in the women's main event scene. So that automatically puts her at the top, right? It automatically gets her in contention with conversations regarding Bayley and Bianca and everything like that, right? Good. In terms of the trajectory, this is great, right? But the execution was absolutely terrible because the crowd, first of all, didn't care. They weren't chanting her name. You know what I mean? And what you could argue is like, oh, well, what did you expect? Or, oh, what did you want them to do? Some type of something other than this, because it fell flat. And the only reason why it fell flat is just because, like, I feel like, I don't know, maybe it just wasn't executed enough, but that's just my opinion, man. I really think that obviously in the next couple weeks, they're going to capitalize, right? They're going to improve off of it, and they're going to do better stuff. But I think that the start of it could have been a lot better. And I don't know, man. It feels like this should have been more monumental, and it wasn't. This feels like it should have been like a really big, surprising go-home angle or something, and it just sort of fell flat because the crowd didn't really care. And I would argue that the reason why the crowd didn't care is because they didn't even know it was her. They didn't even know it was her. I had no idea who it was. And when I was just as confused, right? I was just as confused. I was like, who is this person? Who is this person? I didn't even know it was Nikki. And then when Corey Graves was like, oh my God, it's Nikki Cross, I literally was like, oh, okay. That was it. I had no reaction other than, oh, it was Nikki. Great. That was it. The first thing I thought of was like, wow, that was bad. That was a bad execution. That was very lame and crappy. That could have been a lot better, and it just fell flat. Like it was like a wet fart. It was just really bad. And that really stinks because, again, it should have been something very monumental or relatively monumental. I mean, Nikki Cross is back. You know, long we've been clamoring for Nikki Cross to come back and her to drop this stupid superhero gimmick, and she finally dropped it. Now we just need Piper Niven to come back and all will be right again. But man, I don't know. They really dropped the ball with this one. Next, Tony Khan is accused of letting the Elite run AEW. So we're back with Jim Cornette. That's right. Jim Cornette blasted Kenny Omega and the Elite for their involvement in the brawl. He also accused Tony Khan of letting the Elite run AEW. If you're a serious talent that will outdraw and outperform the EVPs and their friends, or if you're not in their clique and you're not in their social circle and they don't like you, well, then you're screwed. Because the boss is not in charge. So it don't matter whether the boss signs you to a contract or not. Then you're putting your career in the hands of Matt and Nick Jackson. A feckless, ineffectual leader, Khan, that lets his talent run rampant over him and a bunch of jealous, indie-minded, as you said, passive-aggressive little friggin' twats that basically run anybody off that either is not in their friend circle or that can get over them, which is almost everybody in the serious wrestling business. I don't think that that's true. I think that that's where Jim Cornette sort of falls off because he thinks that they're like the king of the playground or something. Like, oh, we're only playing the games that we want to play, and you're not allowed on the slide unless we say so. I don't think it's like that. I think that's where he loses me, at least, right? I just feel as though that I see where he's coming from. In the first passage, he was like, it don't matter whether the boss signs you to a contract or not. Then you're putting your career in the hands of Matt and Nick Jackson. I compared that to, if you watch basketball or you watch football and, you know, guys like Brady and Manning and that sort of stuff, you know that they are so talented and they have so many rings and they're just very, like, you know, versatile athletes. You know that there have been times where they have come out and been like, I don't want that guy working for us and I think he should be fired. And the head coach agrees. And the head coach is like, all right, well, if you don't want him on here, you know, I'll take your word for it because you've got like 8 Super Bowl rings and you're like one of the world's greatest quarterbacks. So you're like a legend, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to take your word over mine. Like, I feel as though in this regard, you've got a better eye for this than I do. You know what I mean? But then again, he's the head coach and he can always reverse it. But I see where he's coming from in the sense of like the EVPs are relatively, I mean, this is technically their company, right? They pretty much started this whole thing, and Tony Khan is the one who's like, he's the one sort of like manning the helm and everything like that. You know what I mean? They're on all the other computers and they're beepity bopping and all that sort of stuff on all the keyboards and whatnot. But I feel like Tony Khan is really ultimately the one who's like, all right, we're going in this direction now, you know? But he's got a point. I think that, if you sat them all in a room, I feel like there would be heads butting a couple times, you know. You would have like Kenny being like, well, no, I don't think we should do that. I think we should do this, you know. But it's like, is that bad? Because aren't they the EVPs? Like, they're not like in charge, but aren't they in charge? But then it's like, well, what is Tony then? Isn't Tony in charge? I assume Tony's in charge. That's like the best thing I can assume is that Tony's in charge of all this, right? And again, it's the same thing that I was talking about in the sense of like, you know, they're still the EVPs. So like, there's gonna be some shifting and some sliding around and that sort of stuff. I don't think that. At the end of the day, I really don't think that the EVPs are like, I don't want this guy working with me because I don't like him. And I don't want this guy working with me because he called me stupid one time. Like, I don't think that, because at that point, you're not even being an EVP, you're just being petty. You're not even considering your role or your status or your sway. You're just going, I don't like that guy, get him out of here. And if that's how you're going to be acting towards your employees and that's how you're going to be that's how you're essentially going to be like manning your company, that's not a good way to do it. And if that's the case, then all right, then Jim Cornette has a reason to be upset at them. But again, I really don't think that that's the case. I don't think so. I think that they are, I would argue that they're working about in the same, because, see, I don't know that's the only thing. I don't know. I have no idea. What is an EVP if Tony Khan is the head honcho, if Tony Khan is the guy who's making the calls and whatnot, right? Is it, you know what? Is it like Nick Khan and Stephanie McMahon and all that? Like there's multiple heads. If that's the case, then, I don't know what else you can say. But again, to really, I said all that to say this. I don't think that that's what's happening. I think that, yeah, there's a lot going on. Yes, there's a lot of talking heads and moving parts and variables. But I think at the end of the day, they understand their role and their positioning. And I really don't think they're not gonna take advantage of their power. They're not gonna take advantage of it. So, Jim, I understand where you're coming from, James. Okay, but I think you're getting a little bit ahead of yourself in that regard. Finally, Logan Paul says his impatience caused quick rise to the top of WWE. While speaking with Alex McCarthy for Inside the Ropes, Paul claimed that he went straight for the top of WWE because he lacks patience. I'm having a hard time understanding how I got here, but I think it falls in line with the way I attack every industry I go into. In my head, I'm like, why would I not just go for the top immediately? I don't have much patience, bro. I was a social media kid. Instant gratification is what I'm used to. So I don't know. I could do all the other stuff and go through the ranks and wrestle little by little and make my way up there, but I prefer dropping the explosion as soon as I enter. So yeah, I called out Roman Reigns, pretty much baited him into a match. It worked, and here we are. November 5th, taking on Roman Reigns for the title at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia. It's insane. This worries me, because this is what I was talking about with, I almost said James Ellsworth, jeez Louise. This is what I was talking about, what was it, yesterday? No, yeah, one of the days, and I was like, if Jake Paul were to ever show up in the WWE, he would do it in the sense of like Brock Lesnar, where he would come in and he wouldn't put his working boots on. This does not bode well for Logan Paul, because what does he do after this? Because once this is done, that's it. I doubt that he's going to be in any type of like prominent storyline after this, because he's already faced the top guy. Like the top guy. The only other person he could probably go after is The Undertaker or John Cena, or The Rock or something. And that's not happening anytime soon. So it's like, if the first thing you're going to do is go for like the top guy, then what are you going to do afterwards? Like, where else are you going to go? I don't like this. I don't like hearing about this, because it feels like he's not here to stay. But then again, was that the whole point? I don't know. I genuinely don't know, but I don't like this. I don't like hearing this, because it means that he's here for a good time, not a long time. But then again, it's like, does anybody care? Does anybody really care that much about Logan Paul in wrestling? My whole thing is, if you're going to come in here, I think that, I don't know how to feel about this. How do I feel about this? I have to explain my emotions. I think that he's really wasting his time if that's the case. You're really wasting your time. If all you were going to do is come in here and challenge Roman Reigns for the title, you could have just spent your money on replica belts and then been like, yeah, look at me, I'm the champion. You could have just done that. That's the same thing. That's the exact same thing. Because you're not winning. Logan, look at me. You're not winning. You're not winning. You are not going to win. You're not, one lucky, no. They're not just going to throw away all of the progress they made for years on end just to give it to you for like a day so they can give it back to Roman. No, you're not winning. And I appreciate your tenacity and your persistence and your determination, right? And your gall and your gumption to get into this, but you're not winning. And here's the thing, nobody believes that you're going to win. No one believes you're going to win. Roman Reigns is the guy right now. You really think they're going to give it to some chuckled head like you? They're not going to give it to you, man. Great. You're like really well known on social media. That's the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life. But you're not going to win. Okay? You're not going to win. So I don't understand I don't know why he's talking as though like, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to win the belts, and then I'm going to leave. Like, that's my guy. That's not happening. Okay, so I think that after this is all said and done, we're not going to see Logan Paul back in the WWE for quite some time, and judging by how Logan Paul is going, right? I don't think that this bodes well for Jake Paul, because I think Jake Paul's just going to come in and be like, the belt, please, give me the belt, please, give me, no, get out of here, Lord, shoo him off with a broom. All right. What do we talk about? Jim Cornette has defended CM Punk. On one hand, right, I understand where CM Punk is coming from in the sense of like, I can't believe I have to deal with this nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. I'm old. I shouldn't even have to still be talking about this. These EVPs are basically in it for themselves, and I'm in pain. But on the other end, it's like, you could have done that behind closed doors, and you could have set up a meeting, and this would have gone a completely different way had you have done that. Nikki Cross came back. Great. That's literally all I can say about it. I doubt that they're going to absolutely crap the bed with this. I doubt it. I think they're going to do really well with Nikki Cross. But man, they fell right on their face with the way that they presented this. But maybe I could be wrong. Tony Khan is accused of letting the inmates run the asylum. Pretty much. That's pretty much what's going on here. He's really been getting yelled at for that lately. Like, really been getting yelled at for that. I don't think that that's the case. I think in this regard, I think Jim Cornette is getting a little bit ahead of himself. And I really don't think that's the case. I don't know, man. I just don't think that's the case. I just don't see it. I feel as though that it would be more extreme. If that really was the case, I feel like it would be more extreme. I feel like it'd be enough for like everybody to be like that. But I don't, but then again, I don't know, man. I genuinely don't know. And Logan Paul says he's impatient. Look, man, if you think that you're just going to be able to come in here and win the belt and then leave, you've got another thing coming, right? Folks, that's going to do it for this episode. I'm going to give a shout out to everybody who stopped by. Hopefully everybody has a wonderful tonight and a wonderful tomorrow. And as always, big hugs. Big hugs all around.